In this movie, I'd like to look at the detailing process in Revit. Not everything that you create in your Revit project will be part of the model. There are many advantages to building model elements because they appear in multiple views, and when you change them, they change everywhere. But not everything needs to show in all views. And so there are certainly plenty of instances where we have items that are considered construction details that really only show in one place. And the quantity of information that's displayed in those views is at a level of detail that makes it impractical to consider modeling all those elements. Consider things like bolts and screws and flashing and mortar joints and clips and hangers. None of these items really would give you much benefit to adding them three-dimensionally in your model. They would just simply serve to weigh down the model and impede performance without really adding a whole lot of benefit. So at some point, you need to stop modeling and begin drafting. And essentially what we do in a Revit process is we do a hybrid. So it usually starts by building a view, an enlarged view of a certain area that will give us a portion of our model to look at. And then on top of that view of the model, we'll add additional drafted components to complete the detail. I'd like to show you a quick example of that here in this prep station. I'm in the detailing file and I'm in the level 1 floor plan. And the first step is to create that view, that enlarged view that we're going to then add the detailing to. So I'm going to come up here to the quick access toolbar and I'm going to click the section tool. And then over here on the properties palette, it defaults to a building section. I just want to open that up and change that to detail. Then I'm going to click 2 points. I'll click over here to the right and drag through the countertop to the left. That'll create a very small little detail view. I'm going to deselect it, and here's a shortcut to open that view. You can just take this little bubble that appears here and double click it, and that will open up the view. Now, the crop region needs a little bit of fine tuning here. So let me adjust that a little bit so I can see the full height of my detail, and I'll actually narrow it up just a touch, and I don't need to see quite that much down below, so I'll shorten it there as well. Now, the next thing I want to look at is the scale. This section cut got created at 1/8 inch equals a foot, and that's way too small for a detail. So I'm going to open up the list of scales here, and I'm going to enlarge this scale to 1.5 inch equals a foot. And that will adjust the view that you see on screen here, and you can see, of course, the level annotation got a lot smaller. This gives me the basic starting point. I have my low height wall here and my countertop here, and now what I want to do is start adding detail components on top of that. Now, the way that I do that is I come over here to the Annotate tab, and there's a component tool here on the detailing panel. It's just called Detail Component. If yours doesn't show here, there's a little drop down, and it might show Repeating Detail or Legend Component. Just make sure you're choosing Detail Component from this list. This behaves much like the 3D component did. Over here on the list, we have a series of choices. So you can see that there are several detail components already loaded into this file. And I'm going to start with a couple that are already here. There's a light gauge metal channel and a light gauge metal stud. So I'm going to choose the 3 5/8 inch light gauge metal channel and bring that in. I'm going to zoom in down here at the bottom. Notice that it's going vertically. I'll just tap my space bar to rotate it 90 degrees. And then I want to line it up with the center of the wall and then just sort of place it down here towards the bottom. I'm going to zoom back out, drag to the top, zoom in, tap the space bar twice, and place another one up here at the top. Then I'm going to come over here, change to the light gauge metal stud, 3 5/8. That shape changes slightly. Let's zoom out again, pan over here. I'm going to come in here, tap the space bar, and get it lined up with the center and about near the top of the countertop. Tap the space bar one more time and do another one right here. Now you see how I'm having a hard time getting it lined up? I'm going to get it close by, like so. I'm going to click the Modify tool and cancel out of the command. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. We have this wonderful tool on the Modify tab called the Align command. So I'm going to go to Modify, click on the Align tool right here, right above the Move command. And what you do is you pick twice. The first point is your point of reference. So I want this stud to line up with this stud. So my point of reference is going to be the side of the one I want to line up with. That's this guy. Then you pick the edge of the one that you want to align. And you see now those two are perfectly aligned. Let's do it again. I want to line up here and then this guy. And they both move into perfect alignment. So the Align tool is a great way to move and or rotate objects into perfect alignment with some other object that you already have. So those are the studs. Now I want to add the drywall. Now, if I go back to the Annotate tab and click the Component button, we don't have a drywall component currently loaded in this project. Now, these component families that we're adding are actually just 2D detail component families. They behave a lot like the other components we were adding, except that these are view-specific. They only occur in this view. If you open up any other view of the project, you won't see these objects, and they're two-dimensional. But there's a whole bunch of them that are included with the software. So I can access those ones that are included right here on the Load family, just like we did with the 3D components. Here in the U.S. Imperial Library, there's a Detail Items folder. I'll open that up. And then there's several subfolders organized in master spec divisions, and I'll just find the folder that I need, Division 9, and then Plaster and Gypsum Wallboard, and then finally Gypsum Board here at the bottom. There's Gypsum Wallboard in section. I'm going to open that. And if you look over here on the list, not only did it load in the Gypsum Wallboard in section family, but all of these different sizes. So I'm going to use the 5/8 type and zoom in here towards the bottom, click my first point, and start to drag. This is a 2-click family. It's what we call a line-based family. So you pick once, and then you go to the other end here, and you pick again, and it creates the component. Let's repeat. Let's click our first point there. Come down here, and our next point there. So what that does is it draws the drywall complete with the stippling. It gives you all of the detail information about the drywall. It just does it with a 2-dimensional component. So you're not actually modeling the drywall. You're just, representing it here 2-dimensionally. Let's do a few more components. Component tool, Load family, Detail Items. I'm going to go into Woods and Plastics, then Millwork. And I'm going to take this standard millwork in section. This is just a standard wood board, and I'm going to open that. Now, this one has a bunch of sizes available if you scroll through the list. And so what you can do is just sort of scroll through here and find the size you want. I've got a 5-inch partition here. I'm going to choose a 1x6, which will be just a little bit wider than that. Click OK. And this is going to give me a nice wood cap that I can use up here at the top. I'm going to tap the space bar to rotate it, and I'm going to place it right there. And now I have this nice little wood cap at the top of my wall. Okay. Again, return to the component tool. Let's load family. And I'm going to bring in one more. I'm going to go to Detail Items. And then I'm going to go to Furnishings. And then under Casework. In Casework, we have a Countertops folder. And there's a Countertop in Section family right there. I'm going to open that up. And it's pointing opposite of the way that I want. So what I'm going to do is just get it lined up with the top of the countertop here and click. Cancel out of the command, zoom in a little bit. Now I'm going to mirror it on itself. So I'm going to select this object, come up here and click the Mirror tool on the Modify tab, and make sure you uncheck the Copy checkbox right there. When I do that, it will mirror it and delete the original. So it'll mirror the actual object instead of making a copy of the object. Now I'm going to move it from this point over to this point. And then you can either stretch this grip to lengthen it, or actually your Align command will work again here. If we go to Align and I pick the leading edge right there, and then the edge of this, it will actually stretch it out to match the length that we have there. So you can see where I can use the underlying model to help me build these detail components on top. Now, none of this geometry that I've added on top actually appears in the model. It's all just 2D geometry that we've layered on top. And you could certainly add other things. You could add caulking in there, and you could add wood base at the bottom, and you could add blocking over here. All of those components can be found in that Detail Items library. But I'm going to go forward here and just add a few notes to kind of finish up this detail. So if we go to the Annotate tab, we've got our text tool right here. Now the text tool can be created with or without a leader. So the default doesn't have a leader. And if I just sort of click right here and type in a note, what you want to do is type your note and then click next to it to complete the note. You can see that that will just create the piece of text. Or you can click one of these options here with the leaders, and I'll do this 2-segment leader, and click where you want to point to, click where you want the elbow to be, and then where you want the note to go, and then type your note. Don't forget to click next to it to complete the creation of the note. And you could continue to type additional notes. And then that first note that we created, it's actually possible to select it. And then up here on the ribbon, we can add a leader after the fact. So I'm going to click this little plus sign here for a leader on the left. And then I can take these little grips and I can point to the location where I want that leader to go. And you can fine tune the position of this text, and you can even add a little elbow here like so to make it a little more consistent with the rest of the notes. So if necessary, you can add other notes and dimensions and other detail components to finish up your detail. But the basic process of creating a detail in Revit usually involves making a section cut somewhere in the model to get you started, and then overlaying on top of that a series of two-dimensional detail components and text notes.